Alrighty, folks, welcome into another brand new edition of the 901 Soccer Podcast. I'll be your host today. I'm your host, Lawrence Dockery. You can check me out on Twitter at LDoc93. You can check the 901 Soccer Podcast out on Twitter at 901 Soccer Pod. You can check us out on Facebook as well. It's just 901 Soccer over there. Good one in store this time. We're going to be talking Memphis 901 FC and their complete and total domination of the Hartford Athletic in the U.S. Open Cup. Final score 4-0 out at Micro Soccer Complex. The first game of the year away from AutoZone, first home game of the year, I should say, away from the confines of AutoZone Park. And the Memphis players, they jokingly after the game were saying we need to petition the USL to have them move all of our home games to Mike Rose because they looked like world beaters against Hartford. Now, to be fair, Hartford is one of the teams in USL that Memphis has beaten that was on the road up in Connecticut. And from start to finish, Memphis totally dominated them. There was no doubt about who the better team was in that game. Start to finish. Almost from the opening whistle. Memphis got that penalty, I'd say, what was it, 5th minute, that Mark Birch put away for his first Open Cup goal since 2008. And that was the floodgates opened from there. Joachim Graf finally broke his duck, got on the board. About 20 minutes later, unfortunately, Memphis did have a goal waved off in the first half. That would have made it 3-0, got waved off for a foul. Asked Coach McQueen about that after the game. He said the only explanation that the referee gave him was just that it was a foul, and he didn't get much more out of him than that. Looked like a decent call from where I was. The goalkeeper's trying to jump up and go forward and somehow ended up in the net. That's typically a sign that there was a foul. It didn't end up mattering because more of the same in the second half. Memphis comes out and just steamrolled him. Joachim Graf got another goal. Hartford continued to self-destruct. They had a player sent off, shown a red card, reduced to 10 men. Then Morgan Hackworth got in on the fun, made it 4-0 for a resounding win. Memphis now advances to the 4th round of the Open Cup against a team to be determined. More than likely will be an MLS team, which is going to have a lot of people really excited. We'll get to that in a minute. I just want to go, a little bit more in depth on some of my thoughts on the game. You get the starting rosters, the starting lineups were handed out, and you looked at it, and it was pretty close to a full-strength squad, and so we're going to give props to Coach McQueen for that because they went out there taking this competition seriously, and it showed. They rolled out a pretty freaking awesome lineup. I mean, obviously, I think the only guy who's not a regular starter that was in the 11 was Levine in the goal, Caldwell on the bench. But, in these cup competitions, you typically roll with the backup keeper, and, if you keep winning and get hot, that's who you're going to roll with. And so Levine got the shutout, I believe. The official Twitter account of Memphis 901 FC gave him man of the match. Don't hold me to that, but I'm pretty sure that's what happened. He had a pretty good game when called upon, and not that Hartford ever threatened too much, but he did a good job when called upon, with the exception of one time. Right before the end of the first half, there was kind of a sequence where there was some sloppy defending off of a corner kick, and Cam Lindley actually cleared the ball off the line. So that was just one of those plays where you sit and you look at it and go, you know what, this is probably our night. Everything is going our way and turning up roses. So that was a good sign. Before the game, one thing that I thought was interesting, we mentioned a second ago that Mark Birch had U.S. Open Cup experience a number of years ago. Hartford's manager is a guy named Jimmy Nielsen, who used to be the goalkeeper for Sporting Kansas City. He won the U.S. Open Cup with them in 2012 and MLS Cup in 2013. Funnily enough, both of those games were won on penalties, and as a matter of fact, in the Open Cup final in 2012, he saved 3 penalties against the Sounders. So you thought maybe that might, work in Hartford's favor, that they've got a coach who's a U.S. Open Cup winner who knows the competition. It didn't matter. Memphis was head to toe, top to bottom, left to right, front to back to front, start to finish, wire to wire, whatever you want to call it. Better team. Best team. Wasn't even close. 4-0 final score. Not sure it was necessarily even that close. Before the game got started, there was, to me, the only real hitch with the game being at Mike Rose, they got a good crowd out there, I thought. The game's only been on the schedule for 2 weeks, and, most of the tickets sold were probably walk-ups. Announced attendance was 1,819, which somebody in the press box commented that it was interesting that that's what the attendance was, given that Memphis was founded in 1819 and just this past weekend celebrated their 200th birthday. So that's a cool little oddity. But the only hitch, it appeared to me, with the game being at Mike Rose was there seemed to be a little snafu with the sound system trying to play the national anthem before the game. But we got to give props to the Bluff City Mafia on this one, because when they realized that it sounded almost like through the speakers that somebody had plugged their phone in or their laptop and there was a Windows update that sounded once or twice. And so I guess once the Bluff City Mafia heard that, they decided to take over and sing the national anthem themselves, which in the press box could be heard faintly with the door closed, but you open it up and they sounded pretty good. So we got to give shout out and mad props to the Bluff City Mafia for saving the anthem like that. Individually, obviously, Joking Graf was spectacular. 2 goals. One more interesting note about that. Graf, Memphis 901 FC has played 2 Open Cup games ever, against New York Red Bulls 23 and against Hartford Athletic. In both games, they have had a player score a brace. You had, obviously, Joking Graf against Hartford, and then Josh Morton got 2 against New York Red Bulls U23 team. So I think that's, hey, you know what? When we get this game in the 4th round against an MLS team to be determined, who knows? Maybe that streak will keep up. That would be pretty awesome. But all in all, a fantastic night for Memphis 901 FC. 4-0 winners over Hartford Athletic, advanced to the next round of the U.S. Open Cup, and truthfully, I think we're really seeing what this team can be now. I think they're playing at a really high level. That's unbeaten in 5 straight now. 3 of those are wins, I believe, and 2 of those were draws away from home. I take that back. 1 of those was a draw that was away from home against Swope Park Rangers last week. And it's winning is contagious. Winning is contagious, and the more you win, the more you want to keep winning, and it's when you get on a roll, you're hard to beat. Memphis is on a roll. Memphis is on a roll right now. And I'll tell you what, I would not want to be a struggling MLS team right now and have to travel to AutoZone Park to play this team. Because you'd be walking into a hornet's nest, and if you're struggling and then you're playing a team that's on fire, typically that's probably not going to work out too well for you. Now, in terms of who would Memphis fans like to see in the next round of the Open Cup, the consensus, at least from what I've been able to tell, if you guys have other ideas, feel free to throw them out there. The big ones are folks want to see Atlanta and folks want to see Colorado. Those are the 2 that people really, really, really want to see. And if Colorado is one that's kind of odd for a variety of reasons. They're a terrible team. They are the worst team in MLS. They've already made a coaching change this year. They've been a steaming hot pile of garbage for about 3 years. They're not a geographic fit, and U.S. Soccer, allegedly, when they do these draws, tries to group teams geographically to make sure, you're not a 4th division East Coast team going all the way out to Bakersfield, California, or wherever. So that, from a geographic standpoint, it wouldn't make sense. Obviously, you've got the Tim Howard connection as part owner of this team and the goalkeeper for Colorado, although apparently there was a little kerfuffle on the Twitter sphere during the 901 FC game, as the Colorado Rapids were actually at the exact same time playing for the Philadelphia Union in an MLS game, and somebody from the Bluff City Mafia passed along to Jonathan Tannenwald, the goalkeeper on Twitter, is the main soccer guy in Philly, that Howard was in Memphis and not in Colorado, and there was a little bit of angst from some folks on Twitter over that. But my understanding is that Tim had I believe it was a hamstring injury, so I'm not sure what good he'd do to you with his hamstring if you rolled him out on the field. I don't understand why everybody was getting mad about that. But he was here and taking pictures and being generous with the fans of a team that he owns. So no problems for me there. But if it came down to it and the 901 FC did end up playing Colorado, I don't know that Tim Howard would be able to play. That'd be sort of, I guess, a conflict of interest type scenario with him playing for one team and being an owner of another. But that would be, I guess, maybe interesting. But if you're Memphis 901 FC and you want to make some waves nationally, the team you want to play is Atlanta. They've been the talk of the league for the last 2 years. They're the reigning MLS Cup champions. They draw 40,000 plus every single game. They've got the Joseph Martinez on the team who scores goals like they're going out of style. He used to score goals like they're going out of style, and then Frank DeBoer took over, and all of a sudden everybody on Atlanta it has some sort of aversion to scoring goals. But if you're Memphis, you want Atlanta at home. You want to be able to make some waves nationally, get that big national audience on you. And the way Atlanta has struggled scoring this year and the way Memphis has been defending of late, I think that'd be a really good matchup. I'm not saying Memphis would win. I mean, I'm sure not saying that they'd win 4-0. Frank DeBoer, after their game against Minnesota the other night, came out and said they're going to take the Open Cup very seriously. That remains to be seen. But personally, I hope 901 FC gets Atlanta. That's what's going to get the most eyeballs. That's what's going to get the most attention. And if you win, then anything's possible. So that's my thoughts. That'll do it. We're going to do that. Call that a night here on the 901 Soccer Podcast. Thanks everybody for tuning in. Shout out to the Bluff City Mafia, for showing out and saving the national anthem out at Mike Rose. Thanks for tuning in. Catch me on Twitter at LDoc93. Catch the 901 Soccer Podcast on Twitter at 901 Soccer Pod, and you can catch us on Facebook, 901 Soccer. Until next time, Memphis 901 FC, they got a game on Saturday against St. Louis, I believe. So hopefully the next time you tune in, we're talking about a 6th game in a row unbeaten. Until then, go Boys in Blue.
The podcast you just heard was made using Anchor. Ever thought about making your own podcast? Anchor makes it really easy for anyone to get started. It's a one-stop shop for recording, hosting, and distributing podcasts. Best of all, it's 100% free. Sign up now at anchor.fm/new. That's anchor.fm/new to get started.